Hello, folks. Killface of Balor here, yet again. I wanted to talk a bit today about fitting in to the dynamic of the groups that you're with, of the culture that you're in, and that may be your clan, it may be your server, may just be the people that you traditionally boss with, whatever it is. Um, I think there's a couple of important points to make there. Um, yeah, so I just kind of wanted to go over all of that. And I wanted to include a couple of real life examples of some things that have happened to me that relate. Because one of the things to remember is that there's a real person on the other end of the screen, right? And sometimes you can tell things about that person by what you see in the game. Sometimes you can't. For instance, for things you may or may not be able to tell. I chose a rogue initially. Why did I choose a rogue? Well, because the rogue was dual-wielding knives, right? And I am a knife guy. So that seemed like the right thing for me in particular to do. So, anyway, all that to say, there's a real human being there, and wow, and everything's fuzzy. Why is everything fuzzy? Okay, there's a real human being there, and they're affected by the things you do, by the things you say, and it's worth bearing that in mind. You'll get a lot farther that way. And part of that is understanding that every clan, every server, every group of people has its own culture. And when you transfer, or when you group with people outside your clan, or whatever, you may be participating in a different culture, right? I am in the middle of West Tennessee. I know, my accent gave me away. And I went into town one day, right, and I was with my housemate, Phil Collins, no relation to the singer, as far as I know. Anyway, so Phil and I went into the local hardware store, and the lady behind the counter, who was taking my order, right, I started telling her what I need. Well, I need some of this and some of that and whatever, and she gave me asked, you're not from around here, are you? Which I was surprised by. I've never gotten that in this area. I did know they say that to people. But I told her, well, I've been here since I was 5 or so. I grew up in the area. And she said, well, you need to lose your brogue, which is not something you normally hear from people in the South. But I told her, well, I can do Southern if I need to. And she says, well, honey, you should have been doing that from the moment you walked through the door. And so the rest of the time, right, I'm going back and forth between talking to Phil and then taking my order from her like this. But the truth is, she was right? I did need to lose my brogue. And the reason is because the accent is part of the culture here, right? When you talk to people in their accent here, you're also talking to them in their speed. The Southern accent just doesn't get in a hurry. It's just not how it goes, right? And so, I gotta be able to mingle like this. Now, on the other hand, you have to be able to be however you're gonna be with the group of people you're normally with. And an in-game example would be when I transferred initially from Android to iOS due to phone issues, back before the server merger, I transferred to a server that used a less efficient system for naming elixirs, for shortening elixir names, than the one my server had used, right? On Balor, we had used an elixir of knowledge. A super elixir of knowledge was SK. Easy to type, 2 letters. And no other elixirs that we commonly needed were going to be SK, right? And then the heroic version is HK, right? And SC is super combo, which left room for HC when it came out to be heroic combo, right? And HH is heroic haste, etc., etc., right? And I mean, we did use E licks and HP licks at times because everyone uses those. Nobody wants a super energy elixir. Nobody wants a super HP elixir. They only want the hero versions, so you can do that. But I had to learn to use the terminology that the new server used, which is they would say XP for super XP. Right? Instead of SK, which is the same number of letters but more specific, they would say XP, or Super XP, which then meant you had to say Hero XP because no one knew what HXP was. Was it HP with a typo X in the middle? No, it wasn't. And it wasn't more efficient, and I didn't necessarily like it, but it was part of the culture. And the thing is, people like the culture that they've created. And you get to have an influence on the culture, but first you have to show people that you're willing to make some adjustments to fit in where it's not hurting anybody. You're willing to inconvenience yourself for their sake, because otherwise, why would they inconvenience themselves for your sake, right? There's a real person there. And you have to realize that when you're dealing with people outside of your normal circle, it is important to understand the way that those people think and the sort of assumptions that are made on the server. There are some common things that high levels know that low levels don't. For instance, there's an area in Stonevale, just slightly to the left of the Otherworld portal, if you are headed towards the Otherworld portal from the farm Laystone. Slightly to the left, there's an area where you might see a high level surrounded by druids, and all the druids are attacking this high level who is not defending himself. And so a new player feels, oh, I'm going to go help them clear that out. That is the worst thing you can do. And the reason is that is a great place to train up your evasion abilities. The higher levels need mobs that do not hit hard enough to kill them, right? That an HP elixir, hero HP elixir, is able to sustain their health at a better rate, regenerate their health at a better rate than it's being degenerated, if you will, by the druids. And the druids use a lot of different types of spells and have a rather large energy pool, which means you can have them last for the entire duration of an elixir. The problem is one lower level coming through can wipe them all out, or even just scatter them all and waste that elixir. You've just cost that high level gold. You didn't mean to, but you've cost them gold, and worse, you've cost them time leveling a incredibly boring part of their character. And there's no particular reason you would know that, but it's important to get to know that, right? Because the only way that you can lose your brogue, if you will, is to understand the local brogue, right? I have to have a very natural-sounding southern accent to slip into if I'm going to match the locals, right? While I was living in California, I got quite a large tip from some Texans who were in town because they wanted sweet tea. I was working at a fast food place, and they asked if we served sweet tea, and I told them, well, not southern sweet tea. And now, I didn't do an extreme southern accent, right? I'm not exactly talking like this because I didn't want it to seem over the top. I didn't want them to feel like I was copying their accent. I slipped into what would be, in my opinion, natural for someone who moved from the South to California. But enough that they could feel the bit of home. Well, we don't have southern sweet tea. If you want, I can, I can just get you some normal tea and we can, bring some sweeteners you can put in it. He says, no, that's all right. We'll get a Coke. But they thanked me repeatedly for great service. And they left me a large tip at a place where tips were not even incredibly normal. And I didn't even have the mustache at the time, so it wasn't that. But all that to say, it is worth being able to communicate with people the way they communicate. It is worth knowing the unwritten language. And part of the way to do it, is to watch and pay attention and realize there's another person there. And part of the way to do it is to watch for the people who will give you the help, who will point you in the right direction, who will tell you what the unwritten rules are, right? Sometimes you're lucky enough to know those people in real life. Sometimes you're not. And if you can find some of those people, there's a balance. You don't want to get on their nerves, so, don't just ask 100 zillion questions. See the person on the other side. But do ask a lot of questions. Do learn from them. Most of us are very happy to share what we know, right? The whole reason that we even bother learning all these things, right? Memorizing huge portions of the game is because we find it fun. And things like that are only really fun if you can share them with people. We're happy to share. But, do keep an eye out for who the ones are who are happy to share. And then pay attention to what can I do to make it so that this person, while they're helping me, is having fun, right? Is being entertained every bit as much as I am and feeling part of the team, right? There needs to be teamwork. You don't have to do teamwork by going and killing something that you can't kill, right? Where your toon is just going to lay on the ground dead the entire fight. But you do have to help by paying attention to the things that they would like to teach you, right? By learning from them so they don't have to teach you repeatedly. Just realize there's a human being. And I know I'm belaboring that point, but the point is a big one because it will help your ability to interact with everyone all of the time. Also, sorry for the fuzzy video quality. This video quality is terrible. Either way. Remember, these are all real people. It's why we play, and it's why everyone else plays. But pay attention. Make people's lives better. You can make people's lives better by learning from them. You just have to be aware while you're doing it. Learn on purpose, right? Purposefully try and help everyone have fun. And with that, have a wonderful evening, and I will see you in the next video.